Hi, Judge Andrew Napolitano here, and you are on Freedom Watch with my guest this week and good friend and Fox colleague, former President Obama State Department spokesman, a Democrat named Marie Harf. Marie, it's a delight to be with you, and I'm happy you're here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. So am I.
All right. We saw earlier this week a lot of temporary elation on the part of a lot of your colleagues and some of mine, not at Fox but elsewhere, when ABC's Brian Ross incorrectly reported that General Flynn would testify somewhere that Donald Trump had ordered him to contact the Russians about foreign policy while Trump was still a candidate. Question, do the Democrats rejoice when Trump stumbles?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't think the Democrats should necessarily rejoice. I mean, look, the Russia investigation is a really serious issue. It involves another country interfering in our election. It involves a lot of really serious allegations, not all of which are proven yet. But I don't think any American should rejoice that we're in this place in our country where we're having this conversation. So Democrats have to be careful not to look like they're cheerleading when, for example, people plead guilty to things. I don't think that's a good look, and I don't think any of us should be happy about where things are right now.
All right, I agree with you that it's not a good look, but in fact, do they inwardly rejoice as the circle around Donald Trump either gets charged with something, accused of something, or pleads guilty to something?
Well, probably. And look, I'll admit that for those of us who were warning about Mike Flynn, for example, many people who have known for a long time that he was kind of a shady character, I think a lot of us feel vindicated when it comes out that he hasn't behaved properly. So, you know, it might at times leap into being too happy or rejoicing, like you said. But I do think there are a lot of us who said, wait a second, this Russia stuff is serious, and we've gotten, you know, pilloried on TV, online, for not having any evidence of that, for getting too far over our skis. So now as some evidence of some wrongdoing emerges, I do think there are those of us who maybe feel like people should have taken seriously the concerns we were raising.
Your former boss, President Obama, with whom I agreed on very little, but whose class and grace I not only will never challenge, I will always admire, I believe actually called up the president-elect, Donald Trump, and said, this guy Flynn is trouble, and let me tell you why. Is that true? Do you know from the inside, when you were the chief spokesperson for the State Department, if that conversation actually happened?
Well, I've heard second and third hand from people I trust that it did happen. And it wasn't a partisan statement. You know, there's a reason that no other Republican campaigns wanted Mike Flynn to be a part of them. And I think President Obama, you're right, I loved how you said that about his character. He was trying to do the right thing and be helpful. Sometimes that's seen as partisan, and obviously the advice wasn't taken here. But I wish it had been, because Mike Flynn never should have been National Security Advisor.
If the Democrats had their druthers, let's say Mrs. Pelosi a year and a half from now is Speaker Pelosi, will impeachment be on the agenda?
Well, there was a vote just this week in the House, which failed spectacularly, but Democrats pushed ahead with this impeachment vote. I think two things. One, if Democrats take the House in 2018, Nancy Pelosi may be Speaker, but you might see a younger Democrat actually challenge her. But yes, regardless of whoever the Speaker is, if Democrats are in charge, I do believe you will hear increasing calls for impeachment. I don't know if that would be wise. We'll have to wait and see how the Mueller investigation plays out. But I can predict almost with certainty that you'll hear increasing calls for it.
Okay, last question, and it's almost the same as my first, and maybe you'll answer it differently now after our brief conversation. I'm not suggesting I changed your mind, but I want to challenge you. Will the Democrats be happy if Donald Trump stumbles? Not because they dislike the presidency, but because they dislike and don't want to have to confront the policies and the personality of this president.
I think that Democrats want the president to succeed for the country, as long as that doesn't mean going against their principles. And I don't want to sound like this an overly litigated answer.
Right.
I want the president to be successful. I don't want him to stumble for the good of our country. But I don't want him to be successful as a Democrat if that means, you know, getting rid of Obamacare with nothing to replace it, passing a tax bill that I don't think helps the middle class enough. And I think a lot of Democrats were warning during this election. Forget about the personalities, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. People have strong feelings about them as human beings. Look at the policies. And a lot of Democrats were warning about that. And as some of that comes to fruition, look, in 2018, you're going to hear Democrats saying, we told you so.
Right.
You should vote differently.
Right.
And they're going to run on it. Whether or not they're rejoicing, they're going to run on it.
My dear friend, thank you for your somewhat litigated answer.
Hey, you've taught me many things, including how to give litigated answers.
Always a pleasure, Marie. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
From New York, defending freedom whenever they let me, Judge Andrew Napolitano here. See you next time, America.